Welcome, everyone, to this week's Menlo Midweek podcast. My name is Mark.
My name is Matt.
And we are diving into perfect.
That's right. Or as I've been saying around the house, perfect.
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 Nice.
Yeah. It's the accentuation of the C and the T together, the perfect.
Yes.
Perfect, you know?
And it was fun because we had Rochelle on last week.
Yes, we did.
Your wife. And then we have you on this week, also known as Rochelle's husband.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just fun, dude. We get to get some time on it with the summers.
That's actually my claim to fame now.
Oh, yeah.
For the first, I feel like 20 years of our life in ministry, Rochelle was my wife.
Okay.
And now I am Rochelle's husband, especially at the Menlo Park campus, which is always fun. So
that is really fun.
Yeah. So yeah, kind of out of the spotlight, and
just
watching her do her thing is amazing. So
yeah, dude, she's doing great, and it's just been so fun to have both of you on staff in more permanent roles now, and it's just like, oh, this is great, dude.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But part of that complexity is balancing kids at home. I know that you were home with one of your kids last week, and she's actually home again with another kid today.
Yeah.
And so, dude, we are talking and diving in around parenting and all the complexity that comes with that.
Yes.
And it was a really fun message from Phil because it felt like he was just like, he was in kind of full like Phil tech guy mode, but also like, man, Phil as a parent, he has 4 kids, ages I think 16 to 6.
Sounds right. Yeah.
And so it was just fun seeing like these different parts of him as he was going through his message. And so, Matt, I'm curious for you as we kind of just dove into what it means to parent in such a high pressure, achievement driven culture that we're living here in the Bay Area, how we can try to instill in our kids as parents about forming them with who they are becoming as a person and not necessarily how they are performing.
Yeah.
So what stuck out to you about this message? And let's dive in.
Yeah, it's great. The interesting part about being in Silicon Valley especially is I feel like some of the pressure to perform exists within the household, and then it also exists outside of the household as well. There's the pressure from peers that exists if you're a student, pressure from parents, and it leads to this sort of cloud, this dark cloud that I feel like hangs over the soul of young people. And like when you're young, you've already got like your prefrontal cortex is not developed. You don't have categories for your emotions. Things are still going on inside of you, and then to add that layer of pressure onto there is really tough. And it exists sometimes intentionally in households, and then really unintentionally. And around here, there are so many options for our young people that I was not raised in that type of environment, and I think we're actively trying to, in our household, put substance first above everything else. But they still carry it, even if it's not, like there's something in the water, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yep. And so this message landed on me in a personal way, having in my household a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 12-year-old. Everybody's above 10 years old, and they all have different outlooks and perspectives on life. So as a parent, I feel that kind of pressure from other parents on what they're working on, but I don't want to lose the hope and development and the victory and the loss that comes with growing up. Yeah. And I'm just really mindful of that. So when Phil was talking on Sunday about how he navigates some of these things, I loved it because I felt like he was bringing some of his organizational leadership perspective, crossing over into the parenthood realm, and then making it executable for a lot of us. But there was also just sort of the reminder of the work of the Spirit on each one of us as parents, and then how that translates to our children. And so it resonated deeply for me in a lot of different ways. And I'll just say this lastly, having follow-up conversations with parents afterwards, I could see the various stages that they were at and the various cages that had been rattled within them.
Interesting.
And because of that, I think this may not be maybe the most popular of messages because it does that. But at the same time, it is a very necessary one. And sometimes sermons do that to us, where they rattle our cages.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's probably to be expected, as when you look at something like parenting, it's so central to not just like a relational thing with husband and wife, but also like who I am as a person. It's core in my identity of, am I a good parent or not? And so if I'm convicted that, oh, maybe I got this wrong, or maybe I'm not producing the things that I'm hoping to produce in my child, then that's like am I good enough?
Yeah.
And so that I totally felt some of that too. Just when we were kind of closing out the message, talking about this idea of how can we form our kids to be more like Jesus, to take their skills to wherever God takes them, not necessarily how can I have my child repeat the Menlo Park cycle of start up, buy a home in Atherton, like that kind of inattainable dream, as Phil was kind of alluded to. This is a conversation that Missy and I have often of, okay, you mentioned something in the water. Missy growing up here, it is a little bit different now than when she grew up here. Me coming from Orange County, still like pretty affluent, but not necessarily as high-paced and driven. I can kind of see, okay, like there is definitely something here, at least in the school systems and with kids, of very performance-minded, very like, yeah. And so as we're thinking about our 1-year-old, who's going to be 1 in 5 days, which is crazy, where do we want him to go to school? We realize that we want to instill, and we'll do our best to instill, a version of himself that isn't based off of like, I guess, performance driven like identity of like, I'm only good if I can perform well.
Yeah.
But we know that the culture here and the water here is it's going to be an upstream swim for him.
Yeah.
And so as we're thinking like, okay, God has planted us here. It might be easier for us to say, hey, let's go somewhere else where raising him might be a little bit easier and we wouldn't have to battle with some of these things. Yeah. Those are all conversations that we're having. And I'm fortunate to be able to have kind of been around people that have helped me try to reorient a bit to fight some of the thing that I'm being pulled to, which is like, I'm also trying to perform well and do all that. So,
and that's the thing too, like how you want to guide your young ones as a parent is entirely based on your inner value system, what you see as valuable for direction. So if you as a parent, and Phil kind of mentioned this, like, you know, that they're a reflection or an extension of me, like if it's that, and if they are not successful, I have failed them. Well, what does success mean? How are you defining that sort of thing? And the key principle of our talking point was healthy parenting chooses connection over compliance, right? Yep. Compliance is kind of like a icky word. It kind of feels like I have to, but that
very HR-y.
Yeah. Or if you're like, you know, on an assembly line or something, it's like, remember to wear your gloves. But like, there's, you know, they're right. Yes. Personal protective equipment, PPE. Yes. Yep. Yeah. The compliance part of it, is so forced and contrived, I think, when it comes to parenting. Yeah. And some parents would argue, well, like, no, I'm making the connection because I made them do volleyball.
Right.
I made them play club sports, and that is my connection. Yeah. You think I want to surrender all my weekends and all this money to go do that? And it must be so shocking to come to the end of that when your kid is like, yeah, I hated every minute of that, and I didn't want to do that, you know? But I wanted you. You know, and there's something there where have we replaced the desire for success? Have we made that the idol? Instead of the actual connection that we have? I was just talking with one of our team members, Veronica, about this. We both have kids who are teenagers, and I just said, my daughter's probably not listening to this podcast, even though she's on YouTube, which is totally fine. So I feel comfortable saying this, but I feel like for her, there is this wonderful relationship we have with my oldest, in particular, where she is much more open to guidance and direction if we have connection, if we are making intentional relational time.
Absolutely.
And I love that. I love that. Like, let's go get bagels on a Saturday morning, or let's go get coffee or do stuff. So I'm in there were the 5 categories that were mentioned: caretaker, captain, cheerleader, coach, more than 5, consultant,
Consultant,
and champion. So for my oldest, I'm in the consultant phase where it's like, hey, you're going to make your decision. You're going to go what you want to do what you want to do. And for my middle, I am in the counselor phase. And the conversation I just had with her this morning, again, wonderful relationship, incredible kid, as she's about to transition into high school, I said, have you thought about what you want your rhythms to look like going into the fall? And she's like, yeah, like a little bit. And I was like, well, like, let's talk about that. Because I would love to know what you want out of this next season of life going into high school, because high school is a very formative experience. And she's like, I just don't want to feel pressure, is what she said to me. And I was like, yes, like, that's right. That's good. I understand that. You don't want unnecessary pressure. But this is what I said. This is so corny maybe, but I was like, I want you to have the right kind of pressure that turns you into the diamond that you are. You know, like there's like a coal thing there where it's like, you know, I just remember high school can feel so dark and like dirty and like, oh, I got to do this and I got to do that. Like it's where the accountability and responsibility shoots up. But I loved my high school experience because of the right kind of pressure deeply formed things in me. So for her, I just said to her, like, let's talk about what you want. Let's talk about what you need to do in the future. And let's see what that looks like. So that felt like very counselor-y, which I felt like was kind of in the message of like, you know, there's a counselor doesn't solve the problem. They ask good questions so the patient can respond, you know, what do you think you should do? So, yeah, fun stuff.
So fun.
Yeah.
It got my mind going a little bit, Matt, as you were talking around, as someone that has navigated trying to still have their children do things. I mean, I remember conversations of you and Rochelle having around like, well, we still want our kids to participate in things. They like, in order to get some kind of freedom, then they have to participate in something else. So that's a club or a sport or something like that. For you guys, and I'm curious around this, is how do you approach the line of what is too much pressure to say, I mean, Missy and I, we both played volleyball, both played basketball. And so, like, we would love Michael to play. I'd love him to play. And I think there is something good about doing something that you don't want to do.
Yes.
But there is the line of, well, I hated every moment of that, and I'm resentful now, versus like that was hard, or maybe I went through a season where I didn't want to play basketball anymore. You know what I mean? And so how do you navigate that? And what are some approaches that we could, or some questions to kind of ask ourselves? And we're trying to find that line as well.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it always has to start and end with connection. There, having not had, that I'm aware of, a child that is of extraordinary ability in a certain thing, like a Tiger Woods or a Michael Jackson. You know what I'm talking about, right? Where the parent like identified a thing in them and they were like, you will do this, you know? So I can't, it's hard for me to comment on that because I feel like having never worn those shoes before, I wouldn't even know how I would show up in that.
The reality is most parents will not have that experience.
Right.
Like there's one Tiger Woods.
Yeah. There's one Michael Jackson.
There's one Michael, like,
I know.
To think that your kid is that next one.
Yeah.
Pretty ambitious. Maybe. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet we look at individuals like that, or the Serena and Venus Williams, and you're like, well, can you create this? Right. Like, can you, and then as a parent, you're like, well, maybe I'll do that. You know, that would be amazing. Which is great. At the same time, like, I feel like the conditions and circumstances have to be right in order to get that result. And it's highly unusual. And so, you know, to your point, like, if I were in a situation like that, I would just say, you know, I've got this, actually, let me put it this way. Pastor of spiritual formation here, so I'm naturally always thinking about what formation means. And the term formation is, if you haven't heard it before at Menlo, it's really just another word for discipleship, a way to follow Jesus. And that it comes from this idea that we are continually being formed or deformed in some way, shape, or form by things around us. And so I've got this note that I just kind of jotted down one day and sort of stuck on my desk, and it says, a frictionless faith isn't formational. And it's this idea of like, if you don't have the right kind of friction in your life, you are not going to have any sort of resiliency, any sort of strength.
Yep.
The things that develop, like a workout, when
Yep.
you're making tears in the muscle fibers, but they heal and they grow.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got to be the right kind of oppositional force, the right type of friction. And I think maybe parenting is identifying, knowing what is the appropriate level of friction to see your child grow, not to break them, but to help them become adaptable to any sort of situation or environment while never losing that connection.
Yeah.
And I will say too, like, I have, again, this is so weird for me having kids who are teenagers now who may stumble upon this in some way, but
Yeah.
I I have different formulas for different kids, if I'll be honest. Like, my oldest is not my youngest. And my youngest being, moderate to low functioning special needs, like, I have to really think about him and what the approaches are for him. And his level of capability and friction is far different than my middle child, is far different than my oldest. So I'm just saying I don't know that there are formulaic approaches. And if they are, they change based on the chemistry of your relationship, your connection, and the personality of the little one that God has entrusted you to raise.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I think that's a very thoughtful approach, and that approach does center around connection and care.
Yeah.
Because in order to live out that approach, you have to know your child.
Yeah.
You have to know what they will respond to. You have to know which children might respond better to, no, you need to stick this out, versus, yeah, you're right, let's try and pivot and do something else. And so
Yeah.
I love that. And I love that in that process, speaking of formation, like, you are trying to form instead of fix. That was the second point of our strategic shifts here is, like, children aren't necessarily broken that need fixing. They're plants in their trees that need watering. And sometimes you water, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you add some fertilizer, sometimes you don't. And so, yeah.
And I would say too, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't have kids, like, this is not a paradigm for me, I would just say there are probably young people in your life somewhere.
Yes.
And who are you to them? Are they family? Are they family, friends, kids? Like, I'm not saying to pretend or put on a show for for kids,
Yeah.
but I think if some of this isn't sticking with you, maybe call back to what it was like to be a kid for you. What were the things you were carrying? What were you struggling with? What were you going through? And as part of, if you are a believer, if you are a person of integrity, and if you want to show up well in those spaces, maybe asking God to guide you of, how can I invest in a healthy and helpful way into a young person that's in my life right now? Because there is value in that. I love my parents deeply, and have a profound thanks for everything that we have gone through and still will go through. But I also have different individuals, adults in my life that I can recall when I was younger that invested in me in various capacities. My first boss at Carvel Ice Cream, taught me accountability, and taught me responsibility.
Yeah.
Various youth leaders that were part of my student group. I can recall all of them by name, and they all added value in some way, shape, or form. Adele taught me how to play guitar at 14 years old. And that kicked off a whole thing for me. So all different people in my life have spoken into it in some way. And I would say, who are the young people in your life that God is calling to? Maybe the parent side didn't land for you. Hey, that's fine. I would say, as a believer, you still have a responsibility to steward relationships well, to shepherd well, the people that God has placed in your life as a form of discipleship.
Yeah. That brings to mind when we baptize or dedicate babies at church. It's equal parts for the parents to say, yes, we're committing to raising our child in a certain way, but then it's equal parts for the community to say, we will come alongside you and help you in this.
Yeah.
So that it reminds me of that, and how we have places at our church where you can be the caretaker You can go hold babies on Sunday mornings if you want
Yes.
to, or we have plenty of spaces for people to volunteer as a consultant in a high school by being a
Right.
high school life group leader.
Exactly. Yes.
Or a
Yes.
premarital counselor for a college and young adult, a way to
Yeah.
champion what it means to step into marriage well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yes, if whether you're a parent or hoping to be a parent, can never be a parent but want to be a parent, there are plenty of opportunities to still parent in the lives of people around. And I think that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. There was something in there. Yeah. I think just increasing the awareness of that is super important, and trying not to get an excuse out of this to be like, well, parenthood's not a reality for me, or that's not a thing that it sits under my roles and responsibilities. The smallest gesture, the kindest word, can go a long way in the life of a young person.
This is bringing up something.
Yeah.
It was a conversation that we had a long time ago, and it was how it's around how you as a transplant brought your family here, and you were noticing some shifts in your kids' behaviors, and that could have been from that transplant, it could have been from the culture shock, it could have been from new school, that. And there was conversations around like, hey, like I'm noticing some behaviors that I'm like kind of concerned about, or that I'm like worried about, because I could see my kids being influenced with a new culture, a new group of friends. How do you, and we have so many people that are in that same scenario, people moving in and moving out, or just, hey, okay, I want to make a shift now culturally in my kids. Is there anything, if you look back to that time, that was super helpful that you and Rochelle did? Is there something that you wish that you would have done, or things that you could have, or things that that we can celebrate? Because I think that your girls and Danny are great. And so as other people might be navigating that same, okay, like I can see I'm already as a Jesus follower and raising my kids Christian, probably swimming upstream against cultural current here, whether I'm a transplant or not. Add in an additional, well, I just moved here and now, oh man, I'm jumping into something that I might have not fully understood when I came here.
Yeah.
What would be helpful, Matt?
Yeah, that's good. The only reason we noticed those things in the first place was because we had the connection with them.
Yes.
And Rochelle is far more astute on that than I am, even though my widget is discernment. Sometimes I can't always exactly discern, but she's got like a sixth or seventh sense about these things. That is probably the work of the Spirit. So, so she identified some of these things kind of early, I think, that helped put us on the path. And I think as a parent, you have, in the same way guardrails exist on dangerous roads, they're designed to make sure you don't go off the cliff. Yeah. And so if you've ever hit a guardrail before, you know that impact is like, bam, like it's like shocking a little bit. Hopefully that guardrail is a last resort. Yeah. Before you get to the guardrail, I would say, have you instructed the way to negotiate a turn for your young ones? And so I think we had to negotiate some turns and terms as we were working through some of this. And some of it was inherent of you've heard the line like, show me your friends, I'll show you your future kind of thing. Of just be like, hey, who are the people that are investing in your life right now? What do you like about them? Like getting to know them. But then also reminding our children that we know them better than anyone else because we have worked to make that relationship healthy.
That's great.
And to spend quality time with them. Even last night, we played Monopoly in the house. And I don't know what your experience with Monopoly has been like, but generally, it is the most hostile. Like,
I've never heard of a family saying, "Let's play that again."
Right? Yeah. Yeah. And why is it always 3 hours?
Exactly.
Why does it last forever?
Let's watch all the Lord of the Rings and play Monopoly.
Right,
and play one game of Monopoly.
Lord of the Rings themed Monopoly.
Lord of the Shire.
Yeah. Some of that, like after that game, there needed to be some follow-up connection and conversation. And at one point, Rochelle actually went into the room of one of our kids, and I mean, she was in there for like 30 or 40 minutes. And I just remember like they weren't connecting about Monopoly, to be clear. They were connecting about things that came out of Monopoly, like the emotions and things that rose up out of that.
Yeah.
And can I just say, like, the 30, 40 minutes as a parent, like, there's some of us would much rather say, no, I'll get up at 6 o'clock and load the sports equipment and go to a game rather than sit to talk with you for 30 or 40 minutes about your feelings. And I can just say, you might be missing it if that's the case. Like, because there's so much more gold to be mined in that relationship there. So, yeah, that's, again, I don't know that I have a strategy or a formula. You got to know your kids, and you got to pray for your kids, and you got to be in their lives in the ways that they need, not just the ways that you want.
Yeah, that's great, man.
Yeah,
really appreciate that.
Yeah,
for
sure. For sure.
Well, it was a great message, Matt. Any other things that you'd want to share before we end up?
I just think, if you're maybe a person of faith, but maybe this didn't land for you, maybe you need a different form, or even if you're not a person of faith. I was just reminded of this scene, which if you haven't seen Inception, you can just turn off the podcast now because I'm going to spoil a bit of it. But the whole idea behind Inception was they wanted to convince this one individual to break up his father's companies. And it was because his dad had died and he was now in charge. And so they go through all this trouble to try and have him arrive at this idea in a dream that he can reconcile and be emboldened and empowered to make a hard decision. Do you remember what he pulled in the movie out of the safe at the very end? Do you remember what this was? So in the dream, he's at his father's bedside.
I remember.
The dad is dying, and he's like, the dad is like, there's something I want to show you.
Yeah.
And he opens up the safe. And in the safe was this paper pinwheel that he had made for his dad when he was a kid. And the very idea, because apparently in this story, he had never known a moment of affection from his father. He had never known any sort of like deep, profound connection with him. His dad was not kind and not there for him. But in this dream, he was reconciling these feelings. And the idea that his dad had kept a precious reminder of what his son was the thing that encouraged and empowered him to make this decision coming out of the dream. Now, I say this not because that's a great story, because it's actually not true. It was a dream that they contrived and manufactured for him to move on. I think the takeaway for me there is like, what are your kids actually hanging on to and remembering about you as a parent? What do they think that you care about? And it's so funny because yesterday my dad actually sent me a text.
Was it of a pinwheel?
It was not of a pinwheel, but it was pretty darn close. He found the letter, the agreement that they had written up for me when I started driving.
Really?
And it says, I understand that my car is a privilege and responsibility, that my loving parents have the final say in what I do with my car and where it can go.
Love that.
Yes. I pledge to take my privileges and responsibilities seriously and will use extreme caution and good judgment in driving. I mean, it goes on and on and on, but it was so loving and yet intentional at the same time. And then I signed it at the bottom. And I just think it's funny that, they held on to that, because for me, I was like, this wasn't just about the rules. You actually did care, and that just meant a lot. And he said, was doing some cleaning and found this. Sorry, you were the first, and we were at times hard on you, but it's only because we loved you. And I said, man, I really need to write one of these for my kids.
Yeah, it feels like an heirloom.
Yeah.
Speaking of hitting guardrails.
Yeah. I know, right? I didn't even intend for that to happen, but there you go.
That's great, Matt.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. I'm super appreciative of just the perspective that you bring and the formational aspect that we get to dive deeper in on. And I think for me this week, I was really just struck by like the connection piece that you were talking about and the connection over compliance. So many times at the end of the day, which Micah goes to sleep at 7:30. So it's like, it's early-ish, but I'm so apt to just do the minimum so I can get back some free time.
Yes.
And it's just like, I don't want to rush through
Yeah.
quick fix parenting to, okay, let's get him in the bath. Let's sing him like the one song that's needed. Let's read him the one book that's needed, and then let's put him down.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like I want to slow down. I want to build trust. I want to like really learn what it means, not only for him to be able to, as I'm in the caretaker phase, like trust and bond with me, but I want to reorient my life around him as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. Part of being a good parent is, knowing, like give the true giving of yourself, but also knowing that like you need some time to restore yourself as well. And yeah, don't push fast forward on those moments.
Yeah.
They're so fun and they're so fond, and they mean a lot. I'm so glad that I can still recall with great clarity the baby years and the childhood of each one of my kids.
That's great.
As they are in the teenager and adolescent phase. The fact that I still have memories of that is so great. So yeah, don't push fast forward on those years, man. They're exhausting, but they're worth it.
Yeah. Well, if you need any encouragement, have any questions, go ahead and reach out to us, 650-600-0402. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.